Well, good morning everyone. This is Nana the Canner here, and I want to welcome you back to the edge of the boreal forest. And if it sounds like I have a harsh voice today, it is because we have been breathing smoke for literally a week now, probably a week and a half. There has been literally no reprieve to the smoke from the forest fires. And I think you can kind of see the haze around us here. So forgive me if I'm coughing or sound like I got that deep, sexy, raspy voice happening here, but that's what we've been dealing with. But today we're going to be blanching and freezing peas. We planted 5 rows of peas here, and you can see they're kind of at the end now. There's a few left. We had a variety called the Green Arrow, which produced very well in the garden. We had 2.5 rows of that. We had a variety called Mr. Big. They didn't produce as well. We didn't have enough moisture to help those huge peas, fill right out. So they were kind of looking a little odd. They didn't quite fill out the way they should have. So for the environment we had this year, it wasn't good, but typically they do well. We also had 2 rows of what we call the homesteader peas. The first picking that we did, or I did, it took me probably about 3 or 4 days to do 5 rows. And for those of you who are just joining us, I have a shoulder injury that is preventing me from doing too much at once. So I would pick, and then I would have to sit and rest for a period of time, and then I would pick. And it took me like 3 days to do 5 rows. And it wasn't too bad with shelling. I mean, that seemed okay. I could shell for an hour or 2, and then I would have to rest. Just the repetition of it had bothered the shoulder. But over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we did have that first picking, and it resulted in 22.5 cups of shelled peas that were blanched and frozen. The second one took quite a few days. The second picking took quite a few days as well. And then I did spend a whole day shelling, which was very harsh on the shoulder, but it did get done. So this is going to be a bigger one that we're going to be doing, a bigger batch than the first one. So I didn't video picking peas simply because, I mean, it should be straightforward. I can find one here and show you how I pick them. And then you can see how I just kind of grasp and handle it. And I'll also show you too how I roll them as well. Because we don't use trellises here. I just don't have time to be moving trellises around in my garden. And it's not something that my mom used when we were growing up. Basically, they laid on the ground like this, and we rolled them. And it worked perfectly fine, and we always had really good pea harvests. So I'll just show you here. I'll find one, and I'll show you here just how I pick them, just to make sure that you don't bring half the plant with you when you do that. And then we can get inside pretty quick, and we can get starting on blanching those peas. So when I say I roll them, they'll typically, once they get bigger, they'll kind of roll to one side. So when I come along, I will take off the peas that I can see. And here's one that we could probably show you how I pick. So grab onto your plant right there, okay? Because you're gonna have other blooms down on that same area most of the time. So grab onto the plant right there, grab your pea and pick. If you grab on and pull like this, lots of times you're going to take the remainder of the rest of that piece of vine with you, and then you're not going to get any more peas on that particular section of the vine. So here, let's see. I'm not sure if you can actually see that, but we'll give it a shot here. Grab on right where the vine meets the pea, and you can even use your fingernails, just like that. Okay, Now, so they're laying over this way, and when you don't have a trellis, you'll have to roll them over like this. And then you look on this side for peas, and you can pick peas on this side as well. And then just leave them rolled so that this side gets some sun too. So when you go to shell out your peas, you can see this is the end where the vine was attached to. And then you've got this very tip. Sometimes there'll be a bit of dried up blossom on that side. Just take it off and take your thumb and press in on the very end. You can see how it's kind of curved there. You're going to press in on the curved part. Press in, break it open, get your fingers in there. And then you're going to take your finger or your thumb along and pull your peas. And then dump it into your container. We'll try one more. I'm going to eat these. One more time. This is the vine end. This is the side with the curve. You take your dried up blossom piece off the end. Put your thumb there. Press in. It'll crack it open. Grab and pull. Grab your thumb or your finger and roll it down the inside of the shell. And that is how I shell my peas. There's no right or wrong way to shelling peas, but this is how I find it the most efficient to do. And this is how all my peas have been done. So these are the first 2 rows of peas. This is the first row, and this is the second row. Both rows are the same in length. This row was sitting beside a row of beans, so I'm not sure if maybe that affected the fact that we got a little bit more out of that second row. I don't know. Hopefully I'll be able to get one more row picked today, and then tomorrow I will try and work on the rest. So this is the third row. So the very middle row there. And these ones are the remainder of the green arrow peas. And these ones are a variety called Mr. Big. So they're quite a bit bigger than these ones here. And there was only a half a row of those. So this is the homesteader peas. There are 2 rows of those. And this is the first picking that we got off those 2 rows. So another day, another 2 rows. Here we go. This is our very first picking off those 5 rows of peas. They're all combined together. It took me 3 days to get these all picked. There is homesteader variety peas. There is Mr. Big variety peas, and there's also a variety called Green Arrow, and I don't differentiate when I'm blanching and freezing between any of them. They all go in the same bag. So now the long tedious part starts, and that is to shell all of these. You can see the smoke a little bit better in the background here. So what is a serving size of peas? A lot of websites had said that a serving size of peas is approximately a half a cup. Well, I love peas, and I know that a half a cup is not enough for me. So what I would consider a serving size for myself would be 3/4 of a cup of peas. Papa, he loves garden peas, but he doesn't love cooked peas so much. So I usually am the one that ends up eating them, and that's fine with me. But what I did was I took that 22.5 cups and I divided them into 2 serving bags so that there's a 1.5 cups in each bag. And I froze them that way. And now this new batch that we're going to blanch is going to be done a little bit differently. I'm going to do more with just 2 cup servings, but I also want to put away 4-cup bags, because later on this fall I'm hoping to be able to make a canned vegetable soup called Farmer's Market vegetable soup. and it calls for 4 cups of peas. So we're gonna take, and I know that I maybe want 2, 3, 4 batches, and we're gonna make sure that it's measured out so that I have enough peas per batch for that farmer's market peas. And then the rest will be like 2 servings in a bag. So I'll show you the first set, or the first picking that we bagged up and froze. So I had to do some recalculating here because I keep telling you that the first batch gave us 22.5 cups, but it did not. It gave us more. So we have 18 1.5 cup bags. So you can see all blanched and dried. I tried to dry them up as best I could before I froze them so we didn't have as much water frozen with them. But yeah, 18 times 1.5 is 27 cups of peas. So me telling you we had 22 cups is wrong. We actually had 27 cups. So this is the first batch, all processed and frozen. So these are the peas that I shelled out from our second picking. There's definitely more than 27 cups here. You can see how nice and big these peas are. They're absolutely beautiful. So yeah, definitely more than 27 cups. And I'm gonna take a guess and say that there are 36 cups. We'll go with 36 cups and we'll see how close I get. So there's a few different methods to preserving the pea harvest. One is to blanch it, 2 is to pressure can it, and 3, you can dry it or freeze dry it. I don't ever dry or freeze dry my peas. I don't have a freeze dryer, and I just don't have a use for dried peas. You can can it. You'd have to go to the National Center for Home Food Preservation to find out how much time it needs to be pressure canned for at your altitude. And also, if you're not familiar with pressure canning, you would have to read up and learn the process as well. If you'd like to know the process of pressure canning, but not pertaining to peas, I do have videos up where I have pressure canned items. I don't pressure can peas because I don't like the taste or the texture. It doesn't mean that you won't like the taste or the texture. I just don't care for it. So when I'm putting up peas, I blanch the peas and then I freeze them. Now there are a few different methods that people are using out there to blanch their peas. Some people use a microwave and do a microwave blanch. The only thing with that is that the heat is inconsistent. When you go to the National Center for Home Food Preservation and you look up steam blanching peas, they don't recommend it for peas. That is recommended mostly for low acid vegetables that are like pumpkin or squash or things like that. So really the only way that you can prepare peas for the freezer is through a hot water blanch. And they do have the instructions there. They're not very detailed, but they are easy enough to understand. And so when you blanch peas, they need to be immersed into boiling water for 1.5 minutes. Not that long ago, it was 1 minute. They changed it recently. I just noticed that. But now they want it in that hot boiling water for 1 minute and then immediately cool down after. So we're gonna get started and get set up here. So this here is a boiling water blancher and it comes in 3 pieces. You have the lid, then you have the colander insert, and you can see the holes in there. So that is the colander or the strainer, and that's what the peas will go in. And then you have the remainder, which is where your water will be sitting and boiling when you move the colander in and out to blanch each load of peas. So to initially start, I take and I pour a little bit of peas in, about as much as sorry about that. About as much as I think that would be one batch that I want to do at a time. The bigger your batches are, the longer it will be for recovery time before it will start to boil. And you have to time from when it starts to boil for 1.5 minutes. So I try and keep these batches small so that they're not sitting for 2 minutes trying to come back up to boil. So I wouldn't go any more than that, in all honesty. Actually, I might just take just a little bit out. I would say that might be 4 cups in there. And then we're just gonna put some water on, and we're gonna fill it to the point where it's probably at least 1 inch, 1.5 inches below this part here, because you don't want to fill this too full and get it boiling, because if it's too full and you go to lower your colander down in it with your peas in it, your water, there's not going to be enough room for it to basically settle in. It'll just boil over the edges. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. So you kind of have to measure out what you're putting into your canner as far as water is concerned, in regards to how big your batches are going to be and the amount of volume that the colander will take up. So we're going to fill it probably 1 inch below this lip here. And it doesn't matter. It should be cold water to start with. It won't take too long to warm up. So once this is filled, then I will take this out, and then we'll put this on the stove. Okay, so I'm gonna be happy with that. Like I said, I don't wanna put too much in because I don't want it to spill over the edges when we do our first blanching. Now, if you're blanching a large amount of peas, you may have to fill this up a bit periodically. But this is what we're gonna start with here. And you're gonna see that you're getting some crusties off the peas, even though you've picked through them. There's always gonna be stuff coming off of them. We're gonna put that on the stove and get that boiling. The next step we're gonna do is we're gonna fill this sink half full of the coldest water we can get. And the reason we're doing that is because once the 1.5 minutes of boiling time is done, the blanching time, we will immediately take it out of the water and let it drain, and then we will submerge it in this cold water. And to help stop the cooking process and to cool the peas right down, I will also use cold water from here. And the goal is just to cool it right down so it doesn't cook any longer. The purpose of steam blanching is to kill those enzymes that are responsible for the deterioration and whatnot of the peas when they've been frozen. It just keeps them looking much brighter and greener and much better to eat later on, and they'll last longer in the freezer. It's pretty cold right now, so we're gonna fill this up halfway with cold water, and then we're gonna finish setting up here. Okay, so that's enough to cover. So we'll start with that. And as we go, the sink will obviously get fuller as we put more cold water in. Then once the cooling process in the cold water has finished, we move over and we will allow it to drain for a brief period. And so we'll let it drain and drip off as much water as it can while we're waiting for the next batch to come along. And then what I do to keep the process going after that, I lay the peas out on various tea towels on the counter to help the drying process. The drier your peas are before they go into the freezer bags, the better off that they will be in the long run. The less water that's in those bags, the least amount of chance that they're going to get frostbite on them. So they go into the bag as dry as possible. So I will lay them all out in a single layer on these tea towels and let them dry for a good 1 or 2 hours before they get bagged up. So we have the lid on just to help it bring up to its initial rolling boil. If there's anything that I've learned is you can leave the lid on for this point in time, but after you have done your first batch of peas in the blancher here, leave the lid off and leave your your stove on high. And the reason for that is once that initial batch of peas has been submersed in the water, there is a foam that can be created in the water after, and if you leave the water boiling on high with the lid on, it will absolutely boil over everywhere. Okay, we have a really good rolling boil, and now we are going to leave the lid off, and we're going to bring over our first batch of peas to blanch. So we're just going to gently lower it into the boiling water. So that it doesn't come over the top. And we can see that it is still boiling. It's not a rolling boil, but it's still boiling. So we're gonna time 1.5 minutes. And this will be the only time that we put the lid on. So 90 seconds from now. Okay, so 90 seconds is up, and we're going to take the lid off, and we're going to leave it off. We're not going to put it back on, and I hope you can see this okay. And then we're going to slowly lift it out of the hot water. Let it drip off. And then immediately immerse it in the cold water bath. Okay, so you can see the foam on top of there. If you'd have left your lid on that, it would have boiled over. Now we're ready to put the second batch in. Just gently lowering it in so it doesn't boil over the edge. Let's see here. It's still got a simmer to it. Yep, it's still boiling, so we're going to put the lid on, and we're going to time again for another 90 seconds, 1.5 minutes. All right, it has been 1.5 minutes for this set. Remove the lid. Gently lift it out. Let it drain off. And over to the sink. One more batch, gently lowering it in, nice and slow. She's still simmering really good, bubbling. Time for 90 seconds. Time to take the lid off. Okay, off for the cold water plunge. All right, so I just turned the stove down just a little bit so I can show you what's happening. So here we're loading the canner, the blancher, with our next batch. Okay, so that is our next batch. And then here we have our most recent batch cold in cold water. We've stopped the cooking process, and then we're just draining this batch off, and then we're bringing it over and we're piling it onto the tea towels, and then we're spreading them out in, I'm trying to make it a single layer. I don't know if we'll have enough room for that, but that's the goal here, is to blanch, cool off, drain, and put to dry. That is the process. Okay. And we'll roll this out into a single layer in a minute. We'll get this load draining. And despite how clean they were, you can see that you still have crud and stuff that you missed picking out. So I'm gonna put a whole new sink of cold water in here because this water is cooled down or warmed up quite a bit. Okay, so we have a fresh sink of cold water ready, and I incorporated another colander so that we're not heating up and cooling this down so much, because the cooler this is going into the hot boiling water, the longer it takes for it to come back up to a boil. So this is the one that I will pour them into once they come out of the blancher. We lost our power briefly. Our last set is ready to go into the blancher. All right, so last batch cooling off. And I'll show you what all we have when I'm done cooling this batch off and draining it and have it all laid out for you guys to see. All right, job well done. We are all done blanching our peas and they're all laid out, drying. And all we need to do is come back and bag them up in a little while. So the last batch of peas actually took up this entire counter, but this batch of peas also took up a little over half of this counter as well. So we're definitely going to have a lot more than the 27 cups we had last time. So when we go to measure it out and put it into bags, we'll know how much we have and we'll bring you back when we're ready to do that. We're going to start in the middle here. I'm just going to roll this over out of the way. And this is why I like using tea towels. Okay. We're going to make a pile here. And it will be easier for us to measure out. All right, everyone, we are all finished. We have the sum of both pickings of peas here. We have our very first picking right here that's already frozen. We have our second picking here in various sizes for various recipes and servings. We harvested a total of 69 cups of peas, and at a half a cup for each serving, that is a total of 138 servings that we get to put away into the freezer for this coming winter. So that's very exciting. In addition to the 69 cups that we picked, we also had peas for fresh eating. We took and picked them whenever we felt like it. Anytime we were passing by, we would fill our pockets with peas and shell them and eat them. The grandchildren too as well were here doing that. And there's still a little bit more peas left in the garden, but we're going to leave that for fresh eating. So This is what we're gonna put away for this coming winter. It wasn't a bad pea haul. I'm pretty pleased with it, considering that we didn't get very much rain this year. But we'll see what happens next year, but I'm very, very pleased with this haul here and how it has went. I wanna thank you so very much for coming. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and absolutely subscribe. And thank you very much for joining me.